a lot of people are driven between these two extremes of legalism or just antinomianism.
Welcome. This is Anchored and Devoted. I'm Pastor Joseph, and
I'm Pastor Jared.
And we've got a bonus pastor again. We found someone else who was willing to come back. We've got a brother named Larry. He doesn't know what he's up in for, but we hope he'll stay for the whole episode. We'll see. You'll have to tune in to figure that out. Typically, I make silly sounds, and as you heard, Jared just gave you one. I guess to-do is yours. This is for the new believer as well as the seasoned believer. Welcome to Anchored and Devoted. As you can see, Jared, I brought my energy as opposed to the other day when I was super tired. I'm ready. Are y'all ready?
I love it, dude. I love it.
So good morning.
Good morning.
And glad you could come and join us today. Jerry, you want to start with questions or shall I?
First question is Larry, welcome. Thank you for being with us. Just a little bit of bio here. What is your, what church do you serve at? How long have you been there? What's your role there?
Oh, my name is Larry Thompson, and I'm the pastor at the Upper Room Worship Center. It's in Parkville, Maryland. That's in Baltimore County in Maryland. And I have been there. It'll be 15 years in October.
Wow.
Man, it's been a while.
Wow.
That's awesome.
15 years.
Are you the lead pastor up there?
Yep. And as you can see, I didn't have any gray hair when I started. but now look at me.
Full disclosure, Larry, Dave, and I all went to seminary at the same time. So
we did.
Looking back at 15 years in ministry like that, just makes me feel old, bro.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't feel old. I just know I am.
You know what?
It's one of those things where as you stated, I can look in the mirror and say, yeah, that's not the same. I can shave and go, I look pretty good. But
I can close my eyes and say that.
When I look across at your kids, Jer, or look across at your gray hair, then it's like, okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, time is quick because it doesn't feel like it's been that long since seminary.
It does not feel that way.
It doesn't feel that long at all.
Not at all.
That long. I actually would have assumed it was longer, honestly, just because so much has happened since then.
Right.
In those 15 years, I would have assumed there was a COVID warp before. If you had said 20 years, I would have been like, oh, okay. I wouldn't have denied it. I just know it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, church, did you start it? Was it something you stepped into? How'd that come about?
Yeah. Actually, started the church in October of 2008. And, after leaving the seminary, I, worked at my home church for 3 years. I was in charge of like the counseling and the visitations.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe the last year and a half there, I started working at a community college of Baltimore County and a program for adults with disabilities. I worked there for 5 years and, while I started the church. So started the church and, it's like Charles Dickens, is the best of times and the worst of times, right? I think people don't really, people sometimes go into established churches and not just pastors, but members, and they don't see all that goes into everything that needs to be done to run a church. But when you start the church, it's kind of like, I wasn't ready for this. They didn't tell me it was going to be like this in school.
No, there's a lot that was left out the book. I can attest to that.
Yeah.
I did a church plant for 4 years and loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. But there is a huge gap for me in the Western church model of lead pastor solo versus co-pastor or going out in pairs kind of thing. And in seminary, that was not a conversation. It was, the model was you go plant the church, you're the lead and you disciple and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, I need someone for counseling. I need someone for, I don't even know what that is. Vision. Yeah, that's what God gives me in my dreams. I have no time to really think about it.
Right.
Everything is
Do you not have
everything
a
is
pastor
flying.
of vision, Dave?
No,
I'll be a
we
pastor of
have.
vision.
You know what? That would be quite entertaining.
I'll walk in
To
with my
have
white
you.
cane every day and say, I'm the pastor of vision.
That would be good. We need a
That's
prophet
awesome.
of vision who is
A pastor
also
of
legally blind.
I've seen pastor of buzz on some churches.
I
Our team.
Oh,
The
okay. So now we're
funniest thing I've
digressing.
ever seen was a friend of mine was preaching at a church, and I went to the service, and the pastor got up and said, "You know, my name is blah blah blah, and here I am, the tribal chieftain."
What?
And
I hope there's some kind of like headdress or something.
Please tell me
like
this was a
a
large
gourd
church.
with beads.
this was a what?
Please tell me this was a large church.
It was a fairly nice sized church.
It's okay. Like I know, all the megas I bump into, I'm always impressed with some of the titles, and I'm just like, what in the world was the thinking?
Pastor's just not good enough anymore.
That's right.
You're just like what is this? What are we doing? Like,
that's right. So back to you, Larry. What got you into pastoring? How did you determine that was something that you wanted to, beat your head against the wall of?
Right. Backstory, right? Ministry is not something I ever really wanted to do, right?
It's a good start.
Yeah. Growing up, I knew, hey, I wanted to be an accountant or an engineer, or something that made six figures, and I would live the good life.
Yeah. Sounds like a good pastor there.
Yeah. And when I was 17, people always here with this dramatic story, but truth, this absolute truth. I was 17 years old, and I had this dream about me being in the pulpit at my church.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, that's a funny dream. I'm not ever interested in something like that. And so I went about my normal life for the next 2 years, and 2 years later, I started. I kept questioning, wondering, like, what is this? I'm like, that's not something I really want to do.
Yeah.
So I went to Morgan State after I graduated high school, and started with a degree in accounting, and I then started having this same dream again. And I was just like, well, God, I'm just gonna flat out let you know I'm just not doing that. It's not something that I'm interested in doing. And I literally had this dream every single night for a week straight. I left campus one day and was on my way home, and my parents' house was maybe like a mile from my church. Yeah. And so I'm heading towards my parents' house, and I literally fall asleep as I'm approaching this intersection. Right. And I there's cars in front of me, but I end up in the median. It's like a big grassy median. So I'm in the median. I wake up, I look around, like, what am I doing in this median? Wow. And so I said, okay, God, you're gonna win. So I made that right into the church, to the church, and talked to my pastor, and kind of the rest is history. But ended up, leaving Morgan and going to WBC.
Oh, wow.
Going to Capital. And I was in Chris Boucher's class one day, and we were talking about, it was like equipping, an equipping class, and we had to do an assignment on starting your own ministry. It could be any kind of a ministry. And so my project was, hey, if I was going to start a church, this is what I would do. And we had to put it all together. And so Chris asked me, he said, you did this whole assignment, but you didn't name the church. And so we were sitting in classes, like throwing out names and things like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to name it the Upper Room Worship Center. And it's funny because that's the name of my church right now.
Oh, and,
wow. Literally, after being at the church for about, after graduating and working for the church 3 years, just say, hey, it's like my passion for pastoring just grew, and so stepped out there and started the church.
How did you get saved?
I got saved when I was 6 years old. My family has always been in church. Actually, both my father's side and my mother's side, they all were at the exact same church. And so growing up, my parents would they would give us Bible quizzes at home. So we would have to go to like youth group and Bible study, and then they would do Bible study with us at home. We would have memory verses and everything, right? My mother would take out notebook paper and write her own quizzes for the Bible, and then photocopy, like make copies of it. And so, we grew up in church. Around 6 years old, I remember praying with my mother to accept Jesus as my savior. But was I really serious? Not really. Because even, I guess we'll get into this later, I guess. But even the week that I did my first sermon, I went to the club. I didn't get drunk, but I was a little tipsy.
Sorry. The spirit was moving.
So yes. So
Dave, notice I didn't put this out there this time, Dave.
Oh my goodness. I asked you if there was any questions we shouldn't ask. Obviously, coming to Christ is one of them. I didn't realize that was a question.
I came to Christ, but he had to chase me for a while.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Oh my. What was your message about? Hold on. What was your message about after going to the club? Like, what message do you bring on a Sunday? Like, that you don't
eats with tax collectors and sinners.
Clearly, and I was last night too.
Right. Yeah, my first sermon was titled "Image is Everything."
I'm sorry. This is getting so much better. What?
Yeah. Genesis 1, 2, and 3.
Oh wow.
Oh my goodness.
In the beginning. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of hypocrisy going on.
Wow.
So.
Did you smell like smoke? Like.
Well, I did shower, so I didn't smell like smoke, but but my clothes did. So no.
How old were you? Hold on. I just gotta picture this. How old were you?
19.
This is so beautiful.
Yep.
God's grace. I love it. This is God's grace. I love it. Keep going. I'm sorry. Okay, so he chased you. I'm putting myself on mute. Go for
it. Yeah, so typical story. Raised in church, discipled by like through youth groups and things like that. My parents, and I feel like came to Christ at a young age, but typical story where you kind of live a double life. My parents were very traditional. So so we go to church. I know how to act at home and at church.
Right.
But just when you get in the world, you knew how to act as well. I grew up in Baltimore City. So you got to act the part, right?
They teach you that at the Naval Academy. They teach you a lot of stuff there, but they teach you to play hard and work hard. So
so
you work hard when you're on the weekend, go have fun. So I get it. It's often what we see in the church culture where
it is.
Especially when you talk about that age.
Right.
It's quite normal.
Especially if you've grown up in the church.
Correct.
Right.
Like that is a normal thing. For those who come to Christ and come to the church, then I know for them it sounds shocking, but for most people who grew up in the church, it's more normal than not.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely. It takes time for it to transition from being your parents' faith or your grandparents' faith to being your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think My wife laments this often. She says, every time a new generation is born, they have to learn everything for the first time, whether it's how to speak, how to walk, how to do math. They have to learn it as if they're the first person to ever learn this. And it's the same way with our walk with God, the relationship that we have with Christ. We, growing up in church, it's easy to feel like because mom and dad or grandma or cousin or whomever is walking with the Lord and I'm not getting in trouble at home, that me and Jesus are cool.
Right.
And Jesus has a really sweet way of nudging that out of us.
Yeah, he absolutely. It's weird being able to look back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to look back over your life and see how God was working to get you to where you are. Because even in all of that, I loved studying the Bible, learning the Bible,
and going to church. And
yeah, I mean, like when I was 12, we would have 2 services, right? Of course, traditional Black church. We in church all day, right?
Yep.
But we would have like a 7:45 service, and no, I think before it started at 7:45, it was maybe like our regular service was 10:45. The early morning service may have started. It ended up being 7:45. I can't remember the exact time. But when I was 12, my parents would drop us off for Sunday school. And instead of going to Sunday school, I would sit in and catch the tail end of the early morning service.
Yeah.
And I would have like I had a binder of all of the notes that I would take in that service.
Oh, wow.
And at the age of 12, I got picked to go to this like the church would always go to things with like the National Baptist Convention.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up getting picked with maybe 4 other teens at our church to go to the convention that year. It was in Pittsburgh. And then we had to come back to the church and give like a report in the business meeting. So I'm like 12 years old. I had this, I wrote my own report about what we learned and things like that. And from that time on, people would always kind of pull me in to just do stuff.
Yeah.
And like leadership things. So I ended up y'all gonna think I'm crazy. I ended up teaching. I was the youngest person at my church to go through our discipleship ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 17, I started teaching a discipleship class for teens at the church. Now,
I don't think it's crazy.
No, the crazy part is whether or not he was teaching them in the club.
No,
yeah,
I don't. Well, see, and this is part of. I think we're rubbing up against some of the stuff that we see church culture versus relationship with God.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
And so church culture is one where there is this desire to impart as much information to the next generation, even when that generation isn't ready to receive it.
Yeah.
And so yes, I can engage with it and learn it, and even be, I'd even say somewhat set apart to do it. Like this is what God is doing, and He can use anyone. He can use believers and unbelievers. So I mean, He can use a donkey. Like He can do whatever He wants. So I think it's one of those things where it's interesting to hear again how He's front loaded all this stuff into your life.
Right.
So that when you step into the relationship, it's not a bunch of heretical things as far as other faiths you have to fight against.
Right.
Now you actually have to fight against what you know. Like, okay, how do I actually apply this stuff? How do I live it? How do I own it?
And I think that that's something that we miss in the discipleship process. I think that, look, I can't say about everywhere. I'm just talking about in my experience. Is discipleship is just, let me give you this information.
Right.
But there is no mechanism to gauge, whether or not you're applying it in your life. It's just a good story, right? Hey, this is a 17-year-old young man. He loves the word. He's doing this. And, I can probably count on one hand the number of people who stopped me to ask me, are you actually living the things that you are
Right.
kind of talking about to people?
And you would have told them what they wanted to hear.
And I would have told them what they wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think
you're absolutely right. There's no process. There's no
Right.
process for discipleship. Discipleship is follow me while I follow Jesus. And like I tell my kids, you only have today, and you have a choice that you're going to make today, right now.
Right.
Are you going to follow Jesus today?
Yeah.
If you are, you're going to grow closer to him. If you're going to not, then it doesn't matter what you act like or what you say or how you conform. You're going to be living for yourself as king. And
right.
I don't want that for you because I know how that turns out.
Right. But the beautiful thing about God's providence is that, I see a lot of people, some people, even my age, some of my friends that I have grown up with that are Christians. It's like they kind of, even we're not early 40s, right? But they're having like a midlife crisis kind of a thing, where now is the time that they want to start. I never got a chance to live, so now they want to hang out in the clubs and do things. And I'm like, hey, well, I guess I got that out the way early. God kind of, He allowed me to get all of that out early, so that but we all struggle with things. I'm not trying to say
no. I hear you. I think my question is not to judge them, even though it's easy to, because I know it is something where they are desirous to participate in it. I'm curious now, just as the conversation goes, and I have not thought through this question or my answer. What is it that you desire that you think, oh, I wish I had that they did take up? Like, I know for me, I would love to have had my little ones earlier. Like, that's always a big thing for me, where it's like, it's just a time thing. But that's still not the same as I'm wishing for something, because there's something there that they see as the good thing that, as you state, I just don't have right now. I have no desire to go. There's literally no desire for that. But I do have, as you state, I do have friends where they're like, I never got to experience that, and I want to. And it's like, okay, I don't know what you're missing, but okay.
You know what I think? I think that we're all personally driven by different things at different times in our lives. And I think that what I would say is, I think that, just thinking about my friends and the interactions that the conversations we've had, I think that a lot of people are driven between these two extremes of legalism or just antinomianism. Either I gotta follow the rules really strictly, and and then there's always going to be this pendulum swing to the opposite direction.
Hold up, for new believers, antinomianism. Go ahead and define that for us real quick.
Okay. So
one of us is going to jump on that and be like, wait a second.
Okay. So by antinomianism, I think that when I'm saying that people feel that they can live free with no rules because of God's grace. So like Paul says in Romans, with sin abounds, grace more abounds, right? And then he says, well, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound, right? So we take that to the logical extent. It's like, hey, well, if I'm going to get grace because I sin, I mean, I might as well live it up.
That's right. Because I like sinning. God likes forgiving sinning.
Yeah. So they may feel like, hey, there's no restrictions. As one guy from my church said, I was preaching from Hebrews one time, and I said, hey, God spanks every child that he loves. And so he stopped after the sermon and said, Pastor, I need to stop you. You're preaching legalism.
Preaching Hebrews.
I'm saying, wait, what? He's saying, God doesn't discipline us. He loves us. He gives us grace. And, even when we sin, there's only love. And so that I think those are the two extremes that people are on. It's like either I have to be very rigid and live by the law, or there's no rules. I can do anything I want, and there can be no accountability.
Yeah, misdefining love to
Right.
such a degree that correction is not part of love. Correction is some other thing, but it is not love. And that's just the opposite. I love you enough to tell you that you're wrong. In the case of God, he makes it clear. First, my love language is obedience, which is uncomfortable.
Right.
And that's what I thought you were going to say is earlier, when it comes to love, obedience is the uncomfortable part, and it's often misunderstood as legalism, just as love for God toward us is correcting us because he knows us best.
Right.
And knows our tomorrows just as he knows our past. He knows our heart. And that is so uncomfortable that at least what I'm bumping into is a desire for comfort. And so, or pleasure, and this feeling that self hasn't been fulfilled until you've done these things. And that's where the midlife crisis comes in. You go, that fits the model.
And I really think that I would say that's kind of where the opposite of where some of my friends are, is that I think that I did the antinomian thing. I did the I'm gonna just live how I want to live part, and even though I wouldn't say I went reckless or crazy or anything like that, I just an average normal teenager, right? But some of my friends grew up with very rigid rules. Like one of my friends, she grew up where we were talking and she said, I have to follow the Leviticus 11 diet. I have to do this and this. And I'm like, wait, we live in Baltimore. You don't eat crabs
or bacon?
Yeah,
it's a port city.
So I think they went through the whole legalism thing, and now at this stage in their lives, it's kind of swinging to the complete opposite direction. But for me, I kind of was that person that, if I'm going to do something, I'm not going to do it halfway. So I feel like, hey, if I'm sinning, we just going all the way.
We are not encouraging sin. If you're
not encouraging sin, that's not what I'm saying.
Pre-Christ, we're not doing that. We're just saying. So if you're listening to this podcast and you have not accepted Christ, do not go and embrace sin because grace abounds.
That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying for me personally, like that's how I was. But now that I'm committed to the Lord, it's like I cannot do it halfway. It's like
and that's why I say the satisfied in Christ, where you say, I've kind of experienced the boundaries and know that they really weren't worth it. Like learn, okay,
they really weren't worth
good. This isn't worth the energy that you're putting into it. This is extra, and I just don't have time for that. I'd rather relax. I'd rather do many other things.
Yeah, once Jacob had to limp the rest of his life, he realized, hey, that and that's how I feel. There are things that we go through, we experience, we bring on ourselves, and we have to limp with, and that's a constant reminder, like that wasn't worth it. Don't do that again. And I just feel like, to your point, that has brought me to the place of being content. We've done, even with marriage, like everything is extreme. So when I got married, my wife and I were like, this is going to be the first and last time we ever get married. Let's do everything. And so we ended up spending $25,000 on our wedding, all on credit.
Oh my goodness!
So let me say, credit.
Don't do this either.
Credit and student loans.
Two things not to do.
Didn't you major in accounting?
Yes. I started off in accounting, and I broke all the rules. So that's the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that we're about to celebrate 17 years. So I've learned. As Paul said, in all things I've learned to be content.
There it is.
So I don't really have. I feel like because I've done all of the crazy things, it's like for me right now. My greatest, like I can truly say, not to be all churchy, like you said, is like, but my greatest passion really is to like serve the Lord, help people, disciple people, help people grow. And that really is what what kind of drives me. I'm a very low maintenance person. Like I said, my dream car that I know I will never own is like a i8 BMW.
Oh, nice. Okay. I'm a Nissan GTR, but anyway.
I just like the doors going up like a Lamborghini, but listen, if I had the money, I wouldn't spend it on it.
I know that's the problem. That's what I say. Someone has to give me the car. Like I can't, I can't buy it. I'd have to give that money away, not out of guilt. Just I know there are better resources.
Yeah, better things to do with it. I would want to, help somebody or put towards missions or Bible translation projects, things like these are really the things that that I've gotten to the place where, hey, these are the things that I'm more passionate about than just luxury.
And I agree. And I think the funny part is, at least for me, this isn't out of an expectation that I'm going to get some new reward in heaven, because I already know the reward is that I've got heaven. Like there's so it's not I'm not saying this to be super holy. Like I don't get that from you. I don't get this to get an extra reward or a special badge in heaven. It's really, again, I know what's worth it. And if I've got money, I know it's paper.
Right.
I know where it can be best used, and that really is out of relationship with God. And that's what I love about what you're sharing. It's not I'm holier than thou. It's the relationship is so attractive to me that this is how I relate to him. Like this is a natural outflow of it, not a legalistic, well, you got to give 10% to the church and then you can go buy the car and we're trying to figure out how to get there and all this other stuff. It's it's not that I can't imagine. Like I imagine a God who creates, so he can do anything. It's just, I do know if I had it, it would be directed in a different way. And so I love it. I love
this comes full circle back to Hebrews, and God spanks those he loves, but at the same time, those who have tasted of the heavenly fruit. Like when Jesus says to his disciples, are you also going to leave me? And they turn to him and say, seriously, where else are we going to go?
Yeah, where can I go?
Where can I go? You've got the words of life. That's when there's no discipleship mechanism. That's what it is, because discipleship is only a path. It's only the road on which we walk in order to build relationship. And the relationship itself is what's being accomplished yet, which is such a beautiful picture. As you talk about it in this, we haven't told our stories. We could certainly uncover the box and open up that vault and start throwing our stuff out there. And the fact is, just like the son that comes back, smelling of pig, having lost all the money, the father looks at him and sees him far away off and starts running to him. Says, my son was dead. He's alive. He's mine.
He puts his ring on him.
Puts his shoes on him.
Celebrates him, yeah.
Throws the feast. That's his grace. That's the grace of God that is towards all of us, that regardless of how far we run, as you said, he had chasing. He was chasing you at 6. He continued chasing you. He will continue chasing you because of how much he loves you. And that, as I grow as a father, that's one of the things that I see more and more clearly, because I see the lack in myself when it comes to my own kids.
Right.
Wow. That's fantastic.
I think that's a grace of God. To keep us humble, right?
Yep.
We look at our kids and say, I have so much farther to go.
Well, brother, thank you so much for coming on with us. I want to be respectful of your time. Really appreciate you spend this time with us. If people want to reach out to you, if they want to follow you, how can they do that?
Our website is www.urwcbaltimore.org, and all of our contact information and everything is on there on our website.
Do you put out anything in the Instagram or YouTube or anything?
No, I was banned on social media by my. No,
okay.
Listen. No, I'm no, seriously, because me, I love a good debate. So,
I
had some people from the church were like, "Hey, pastor, hey, listen, how about you get off of social media?" So,
I'm in agreement with them. Just for the record, I've never seen your social media, and I'm still in agreement.
Yeah, so I deleted my social media. I stayed off for like 3 years, And I literally just got back on Facebook a couple months ago.
Boo.
And I only get on to like just scroll through, see how people are doing, make a few jokes, and I get off and stay off. So
there you go. Boundaries.
I don't do the social
awesome.
media. It's such a waste of time.
That's why I was agreeing as far as not being on it. I see its usefulness. We are on different platforms, so I get it. I'm not trying to hate on them. I just know that currently they're designed not to help you, but to detract from your life.
Absolutely.
And for that reason, from a counseling perspective.
Done. I get so much more reading done when I'm not on social media.
And connecting with friends. Like, you actually call them and talk to them.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Again, thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Listeners, thank you guys for coming with us. This has been Pastor Larry Thompson. And encourage you to check him out. Check out his church. Check out the website.
Go to his church. Don't check it out. Go.
That's what I said. I said check it out. I said the wrong thing. Thank you for correcting it. Yeah. We love you guys. You can reach us always at anchoredanddevoted@gmail.com or wherever you're listening to podcasts. There are questions or polls that we're posting with these interviews. So if you have a chance, go ahead and check them out. You have to go over to Spotify for that, but we'd love to hear from you. Get a little back and forth going. We'll see you guys later.